Hi all. So welcome to day 3 of this JMeter session. And as a recap, so in day 2 yesterday we have discussed about JMeter download and launching on Windows OS, JMeter 2 launching modes, importance of launching JMeter in CLI or non-GUI mode, why we launch in GUI mode, right? Or what is the importance. Then a little walkthrough on JMeter application GUI and IDE. Then some other points related to JMeter, then JMeter download and launching on macOS, how to do that, and it's download and launching on Unix, Linux or Ubuntu OS, how to do that, right? Now in day 3, so we'll start from core concept of performance testing lifecycle, test scenario, test case, test suite, transaction, recording, enhancement, debugging, what are they, we'll see that. Then what is protocol and different type of protocol, then what is server and its type, and then HTTP protocol, right? Request response headers, request method, and status code. So let us see how much we can cover today in this day 3. So starting with the core performance testing concept and performance testing life cycle, right? So in PTLC life cycle, performance testing life cycle, there are 6 to 7 phases. First phase is NFR gathering, non-functional requirement gathering. Second phase is test strategy or test planning. Third phase is test design or test scripting. Fourth phase is workload modeling and test execution. Fifth phase is test result analysis and reporting. Sixth phase is benchmark and recommendation. And seventh phase is again rerunning. Now in phase number 1 here, so generally in this phase or this phase, these two phase, okay. So above two phase, this phase and this phase, these two phase, direct human intervention is there. Human intervention means any senior person will be there. They will take care. Okay. So in first phase is the requirement, like how in our testing we have BRD document is there, right? Business requirement document. So similarly for non-functional testing also we have this NFR, non-functional requirement gathering. In that we take inputs from client. So some list are there, like how much user you want to test for, what is the response time you are expecting, how much user load you want to do. This kind of criteria we collect in non-functional requirement gathering. Okay, so some senior person, generally the BA business lead or yeah, some senior only, some manager or some senior in performance testing only, right? So they take care of this step. Now once the client has given those things, so the team will plan, and that is what test strategy or test planning phase. In that phase, like budget setup, protocol identification, tools pickup, environment setup, resource allocation, these things should be done. These things will be done. Okay, so again here also like human intervention only in this whole process, like what is the budget, which resource to allocate, right? And protocol identification. So this is also an important thing. Protocol identification means see, JMeter can support HTTP and other protocol what you have seen, but few applications are there which JMeter cannot support, like desktop application we say, like those people who are from load runner, they know this. Or Oracle application is there, SAP application is there. So those kind of applications are there which has limitation in JMeter. Okay, so suppose if your client has given any of those kind of applications, so we cannot do using JMeter. That's why we have to identify the protocol, and depending on that we have to pick the tools. So if they have given the web application, and web application always work on HTTPS protocol, right? HTTPS protocol, and JMeter is fully capable in supporting them. So let us say that if it is web application, and once that is decided that it is web application, then we pick the tool, like whether that client want to go with load runner or JMeter or new load. Either he tells us or we recommend him, right? That is tools pickup, then environment setup, then resource allocation. These things will be the this test strategy and test planning. Now that real use of the tool will come in only these two step or phase. Here the performance testing tools comes in picture. PT tools. PT tools like LR, any PT tool. We have seen so many. New load, famous one, right? Or our JMeter, JM. So in these two phase, test design and workload modeling, we make use of performance testing tool. We do the scripting, we do workload modeling, and we do the test execution. Right? In this two phase only, the PT tool is required. After this phase is done, then this then after this phase is done, then we have test result analysis, reporting, and benchmarking recommendation, and if required, rerunning. So here again, some senior person will be there, like at least 3 to 4 years is minimum required, minimum 4 years to give for recommendation. At least you should have a proper 6 years of experience in real time. Okay, then only you can do some recommendation to that. In test result and analysis, this part is little bit easy. Here you can also do, any fresher like a person can also do. There we have to just read out the result, whether response time is high, less, and we have to prepare a report, and then we have to submit it our any senior or directly to the client, right? So that is the fifth phase. In sixth phase, benchmarking and recommendation. So the some senior people, we call it as a performance engineer, right? So their role will come, so that is totally a different thing. You will get that only when we'll have some real-time exposure, right? This part. Now, so our whole course syllabus will be in this phase: test design, workload modeling, and execution, and a little bit on this test result analysis and reporting, phase number 5, right? But basically, since tools where the performance testing tools are used only in these two phase, right? Phase number 3 and phase number 4. So and JMeter we are going to since this course is JMeter only, so we will be on this phase only, phase number 3 and phase number 4, correct? So this is the PTLC life cycle. Now uh, here so let us go to phase number 3. Okay, phase number 3. So in phase number 3, that is test design or test scripting phase, we call it as the test scripting phase. In that, what we do, we identification and documentation of the test scenario, or we call that as a user story also, or user flow, right? So test scenario and then test cases, or we call them as a test steps or user actions or transaction, that is done along with critical scenarios and feasible and non-feasible scenario. That is the first step of phase 3. Okay, phase 3. So uh, yeah, so uh, we have to document that properly. That is the first phase in test design and test scripting, right? So first we'll understand that what a test scenario means, okay, or what a user story or user flow means. So first we have to identify, then only we go for a scripting, recording, enhancement, and other thing. Now coming to simple example, just put it here. Okay, so this is a e-commerce example. E-commerce example. Okay, e-commerce example. So in e-commerce, generally, let us say we have Amazon or Flipkart. So there, what is happening? Some separate department is there. Seller is there, buyer is there, right? Admins are there, admins of Flipkart or Amazon. So a seller, his role will be, let us say a seller want to add his product. So what he will do? He will launch the home page, he will log in, he will go to product tab, he will add a product, he will fill the product details, and he will submit it for approval, and then he will do the logout, right? So this is the role of the seller for adding the product. So this is one test scenario, right? Whole this flow is one test scenario, right? And these small steps are test cases, or we call them as a transaction in the performance testing world. Transaction, okay. Generally technical term is transaction, or we call it as a test steps, right? Or test cases. And whole complete thing is known as test scenario, or user story, us, okay, user story, or user flow, uf, user flow, right? Whole thing. And a small is test step or transaction or test case, we can say anything, a small fragment, right? And yeah, so this is for seller. Now once the seller has submit the product for approval, it will go to admin, right? Admin of Flipkart or admin of Amazon. He will launch the home page, log in, go to admin panel. He will see the product request, he will click the request. After verifying another thing, he will approve it or reject it, right? And then he will log out. So this scenario is for product request approval or denying by the admin, right? So whole thing is again one scenario, right? Scenario. And or we call it as a user flow or user story, everything is same. User test scenario or user flow or user story, okay, same, these three terms are same. Now, and a small these steps, home page launch, login, admin, all these steps are transaction. In performance testing world, we call them as transaction or user steps, right? Or test cases, anything we can call, but technically they are called as a transaction, okay. Same case, let us go that uh, just suppose some new admin, uh, some new seller is there who want to join with the Flipkart, right? So he'll fill the form and he'll submit uh, to the admin for that seller, right? So again for him these will be the steps: homepage launch, login, admin, seller request, right? uh, Click request. Means this is for admin. Seller has already submitted one request, right, for adding to the website. And now it's upon admin, he want to approve it or not, right? He want to approve it or not. So admin will log in, homepage launch, login, admin request, seller request, click, then approve or reject, and then log out, right? So this is one more test case. Similarly, let us say seller has added the product. So seller want to delete that product, so that will be the steps for this: homepage launch, login, product tab, delete, choose, and yeah, sorry, delete is here, then log out, right? That is for deleting. Now here buyer, right? Most of people are buyer only, so this test case is for buyers. A buyer buying a product, so homepage launch, login, search a product, add to cart, checkout, order summary, payment, right? Log out. So this is the buying product scenario for a buyer. Now generally a buyer has to cancel the product also, right? We know that. So this scenario: homepage launch, login, go to order history, select the product which you want to cancel, cancel order, log out. Then this is buyer registration, registering complaint if any feedback he want to give or any complaint he want to do. So nowadays everything can be done from the web only, right? In the Flipkart this option is there, on Amazon is there. Directly go there in the accounts page, select the product, and you raise the complaint. They will call you or they will send the email, right? So for that this is the scenario. This is the scenario. So whole like how many scenarios are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 important scenario available on generally for a e-commerce site. Many more are there. They are just for example. So we have to identify the scenario available on my application. Is different scenario with their scenario name and test steps or transaction involved in them, right? Involved in them. Now in real time, let us say that we have Flipkart here. So suppose a simple test scenario for a Flipkart for for a user who want to buy something, right? So he will do what? He will first launch the home page, then he will come and he will search the product here, right? Search. So home page launch, search, then let us say anything, lap, any laptop, right? Laptop, and he click on search button. Then he found some list of laptop. From this, let us say he selected anyone, right? This HP is selected. He will click on that. So this is next transaction, right? One new page will come. He will read the details, and then he will click on buy now. Here he will do the sign in, right? He will do the sign in, then continue, then he will choose the delivery address, then order summary he will check, then he will do the payment, and that order will be booked, right? So this whole complete end-to-end flow from login to log out in for that user who is doing a product booking, for him from end to end, right, from launching the home page to the logging out, this whole thing is will be known as test scenario. This is called as test scenario. Okay, and in that the steps are involved. So home page launch one step, then searching is one step, then clicking the product is one step, then let us say here doing the sign in is one step, then delivering address one step, order one step, payments one step, right? So this small step is known as transaction, right? Transaction. So this is the difference between test scenario and a transaction, or generally test case, but technically we call that as a transaction. Okay, transaction. Now let us say that this Flipkart only, how many scenarios can be there, just for understanding purpose, right? So 7 already we have seen. A seller adding a product, and then his product will be approved, then that admin approving the seller registration, seller deleting the product, buyer buying a product, buyer cancelling the product, buying registering a complaint. These are there. Few more will be there, like few user want to update their address, so that is also a scenario. Few user want to update his email id, no email id not, password, right? Password. So that is also one scenario. So in that way, if you go on, you'll find like 10 to 12 scenario easily you will get on your for your application, right? So we have to identify them, and then we have to document them, right? So that is the what first step is. Identification and documentation of test scenario, and the test scenario is also known as user story or user flow, and test cases, or we call them as a test steps or user action, or technically this is known as transaction. Okay, transaction. In performance testing we do not call it as a test case, generally we call it as a transaction. Okay, along with we have to identify critical scenarios, feasible and non-feasible scenario as well. So what is critical scenarios here? So for any application, any business application, some scenario will be there which is which is generally the most important part of that application. So let us say that this Flipkart only, if we see, the critical scenario for this will be login, search the product, click on add to cart, after buying login, delivery, address, order summary, and payment page. So this particular scenario is the critical scenario. Everything should go smooth for that particular user, otherwise that particular user will go away. Right? Or so this is one most priority, or topmost priority user test scenario. Second can be sometime user will come, he will just browse and then he will go, right? So for him also that will be considered as second at second level priority. Okay, second level priority critical scenario. So similarly in banking application, payment transfer transactions are there, right? Those things, checking the dashboard, checking your balance, right? Those things, paying the bill, transferring the money. So this transaction will be treated as a critical scenario, right? So it depends on business to business. Like if anyone want to identify you that, then it's okay, or we do identify in one go only, critical scenario or other thing. Uh, Sometimes it's not necessary, simply scenario identification is necessary. But we should know what is critical scenario, right? Now feasible and non-feasible scenario. So feasible scenario means all scenario are generally feasible only, but few scenario will be there. Let us say OTP will be there, right? CAPTCHA will be there. So that cannot be done even in automation testing, because that is the purpose of OTP only, right? Or some CAPTCHA thing only. So you have to mark that. You have to mark as red, and you have to tell them that till the testing is going on, remove the OTP functionality or make the OTP constant. That OTP should be hard coded, right? Like that, a single fixed OTP will be there, right? So that we have to identify. And few scenario are there which we cannot automate also, right? These things are there. So in scripting also, some scenario will be there which we cannot test at all. Those scenarios are there sometime. So that also, that is known as non-feasible, right? Non-feasible. And feasible means which we can do, right? So these are the words used in while identifying a test scenario thing or test cases. Now coming to uh, the test scenario part. So test scenario, it's a combination of test cases or test step or user action or transaction, right? Or transaction. It's also known as user story or user flow. Test case means it is each user action or each test step, simple symbol, or each transaction. Okay, or each transaction. So I'm highlighting transaction in black, bold color, sorry, so that generally we use transaction word in performance testing, right? So one user action or one test step is known as transaction in performance testing. Okay, in performance testing. Now how this load distribution happens? So generally what we do, suppose one user is there, right? So let us say that, for example, I have taken launch, login, browse a product and log out. Then one user launch, login, browse a product, add to cart, checkout, right? Payment details, then log out. Then one user who is doing launch, login, my orders, select order, cancel it, and log out. One user like launch, login, my go to my orders tab, then select the order, raise a complaint, and then log out, right? So four scenario. So what we have to do after identification, we script them. Here one term is used that is known as scripting. For each scenario we will be doing scripting. Okay, scripting. And what these things are, we'll see that. So for each scenario, once we are done with the scripting, after the identification of scenario, if we see script recording, script enhancement, these things are done. So we have to do for all scenarios, right? All scenarios. And then we go for load testing, right? Load testing. In that we distribute the load across each scenario separately or as per given by the business. So that is phase 4, workload modeling and test execution. Okay, so suppose let us say that these are the four scenarios we scripted out, and there are 1000 users visiting Flipkart or any bank per hour. So out of that, 600 you want to assign first scenario. 600 users generally do the first scenario, 200 does the second scenario, 100 user does the third scenario, and 100 user does the fourth scenario, right? So it will be like distributed like this, 600 for first, 200 for second, 100 for third, 100 for fourth, like that. So in real time, once we'll do that, we'll get the clear idea, but this is the basic, right? Basic part. And then Sometimes we have to run them in parallel, right? We have to run them all at one go. So when we are running them all in one go, all this scenario, when we are running in all go, so that is known as test suite, right? Running all the scenario in one go is known as test suite. And let us say we'll run the test suite with all these user distributed across them. So total how many user will be running? Will be running for around 1000 users on that application, right? 1000 user. Similarly, if user load is high, so you can increase the user load, and more number of user will be hitting your application. So this is test scenario thing. Now uh, okay, so after test scenario is done, so what we do, we do the script recording first. Once a test scenario identification, another thing is done, so we start scripting with each scenario, or if multiple teams are there, so they will take one scenario and they will start working on that, right? So first we'll do what? We'll do the script recording. In that what we do, so script recording phase is basically recording and capturing the request and response for each user or transaction, right? Each user action or transaction on an application for a particular scenario, right? So a straightforward definition is very straightforward. Now what is this recording the request and response? That is the part over here, right? So uh, okay, so we'll discuss this, and after this recording is done, then we do the script enhancement, then replay, debugging and stabilization, and after that what we do, we put the workload modeling and execution, depending on how much you want, and or how much load you want to distribute across different scenario, right? So we'll see what is this recording or capturing. Before that, let us discuss one a small point. Mm. Okay, protocol, different types of protocol and server type. Protocol. A small session on protocol, right? Before we go there. So what is protocol? Protocol is basically set of rules or guidelines for communicating the data between two devices. Okay, or yeah, generally between two devices. Okay, and this part I'll put it in the server part. Control X here. So that is the protocol. Now any, let us say Bluetooth is also a type of protocol, okay, because that two devices are getting communicated. Simply we have Wi-Fi, and so this protocol we have seen, or we may have learned in our engineering, right, in network communication, yeah, network session or network semester. So generally for applications we have protocol like HTTP, HTTPS or FTP. So full form of HTTP is hypertext transfer protocol, and AC is for secure. Then FTP is file transfer protocol. SMTP is simple mail transfer protocol. Okay. TCP, I forgot, transport something is there. Okay, and SNMP is there. So a small list of protocol here, but more list are there, right? More protocols are there. Now in this generally we will be working on HTTPS protocol. Yes, HTTPS protocol. And what is this HTTPS protocol? So this protocol is used in the communication between browser and the server. Browser and the server means this application is a this Flipkart application is a server. Okay, treat this application, right, this website as a server. It's a server. Okay, and we users are accessing that. So we are accessing that using a browser, and we are connecting with that server, that that server, and this communication that is happening, it's following HTTPS protocol. Okay, HTTPS protocol. And if we see, even if I copy this website address and if I put it over here, so you'll get that by default HTTPS is there, right? HTTP or HTTPS, same thing. So HTTP protocol, right? HTTP protocol. So this whole communication, these all web-based application, they communicate on this HTTPS protocol, right? So we have to know that, because this 70 to 80% projects are web application only, and JMeter is capable in testing the web application, right? So first we have to know the protocol, this HTTPS protocol, then we can understand the other thing. So so some point related to HTTP protocol, that every request in this HTTP protocol has header and body. Okay, and so header acts as a key value pair. I'll come to that. We'll see this practically. Headers are mandatory thing. Body can be optional. Then HTML is used in the body only. HTML is the language. So for now it will be little bit confusing, right? We'll see that. Not an issue. And it's a stateless protocol. HTTP protocol is a stateless protocol. Okay, I'll be revisiting it again. First, let us finish one more thing on this part. Server. Server. Okay, so first we'll see what is servers. Now server is a combination of hardware and software. Software itself is of no use, it is installed on hardware. So a whole hardware means CPU is there, right? CPU, memory is there, RAM, ROM, memory, something, right? Those things, and network connection, power backup, all things is the hardware part, and inside that software is installed, and both the connection of hardware and software is known as a server, right? Server. And everything is a server. Even our laptop can act as a small server also, right? So in laptop, the outer part is the hardware, the inner part OS and other thing we install is a server. Now in same pattern, these applications are installed on some servers, all these application, and those server, again, that will be combination of some hardware and the software, and in that layers are there, right? Layers are there. So that architecture of application is there, that we'll discuss in some other session, but currently only focus on the server. What is server, right? So server is a combination of hardware and software for our application, and our application is hosted on that, and it is made available to the user, and all user connect to that server, access the application, right, and do the stuffs. So that is a simple definition of server. Now server can be of many type. So server what the software installed on the server understand the client request, they process the request, they send the response back, right? Server has to understand the request from client, and at the same time client needs to follow the protocol. So the protocol communication that is happening between using that HTTP protocol, right? HTTP protocol. And so many kind of server can be there: file server, print server, database server, application server. So little bit theory is there here. Once I share the PPT, you can read, right, like that. Types of server, proxy server, mail server, virtual server. These are the types of server, right? So that is server, and this is the protocol. The communication happening between the browser and the application server is the HTTP protocol. Okay, is the HTTP protocol. HTTP is the one of the protocol. There are many type of protocol in this world, but basically we'll be focusing on HTTP protocol. Now, uh, just okay. So here HTTP protocol. Okay. So this slide is little bit in development mode only. I was working on that, so it's not fully complete. I'll fix that tomorrow. Okay. So we'll start from HTTP protocol. So HTTP protocol is divided into 5 parts, right? Request, response, headers, request method, a status code. 5 parts, right? These are the 5 parts of a HTTP protocol. They make the HTTP protocol. Now we have to understand what is a user action or a transaction, right? And each user action or transaction generate a HTTP HTML request. So let us say we go on this website, here flipkart.com. So when we open, first we launch the website, right? And then we open the website. Sorry, first we launch the browser, and then we enter the website address there, and then we launch the website using the browser, right? So this will act as one user action, and it generates a request to the server. So let me put it here, correct here. This will act as a request. This URL acts as a request, or we call it as a request. It request send is going to the server, and server sends something to you, that is known as response. Okay, response, request and response, we have to understand. So this URL, when we send using the address bar in our browser, it went to the server, and browser returned back this response to us. This page came in the form of response. Okay, response. Now this response, this request and response is of a type called HTTP HTML. HTTP HTML type. Okay, HTTP HTML type. That is the thing. We'll come to that this again. Let us understand one more thing. Now on this website, let us say I'll click somewhere on MI. If you observe on the URL, a new URL has occurred. This is the new URL, right? And what we see here, the base URL remains same. Okay, so this part is known as base URL. We call that as a base URL. Base URL. So here in both the thing, base URL remains same. This part changed. The thing on the right hand side that changed. Okay, that changed. And again, this act as a request to the server. When we clicked on MI, this URL got generated. It went as a request to the server, and server responded us with all the MI mobile it has. Right? So again, this is a user action. This thing is known as one user action. Earlier launching is one user action, right? One user action UA. Again, clicking on MI mobile was another, right? Another UA, user action, correct. Similarly, if you go on like doing like that, so you'll see each time a new kind of URL will be generated, and that URL acts as a request to the server. So let us say if I click on this mobile, okay, so again this request goes to the server. It's a little bit big request, okay, but the base URL remains same. Here the thing got changed. Okay, this part got changed. It went to the server, and server responded this page to us. So this is known as what? Response. This whole data is known as response, and what we send over the address bar in the browser, that is known as request. request, and this is response, right? So this is the concept of request and response in any web application. So what we have seen that any user action or a transaction generates a HTTP HTML request. Okay, that request is known as HTTP HTML request. And how to see that? So let us open the Mozilla Firefox. In Mozilla Firefox it will look better, and we have to take help of our developer tool. Okay, developer tool. Every browser has this developer tool. So let us go here, and you'll see web developer is there. I think this one. No, just a second. We can do it from F12 also. If you press F12, it will come. So I will just press F12. Right, shortcut is F12. F12. So press F12. That developer tool will come. See, this is the developer tool. Okay, browser developer console we say, or developer tool we say. It is there in everywhere, in even in Google Chrome. Here if you press the F12, or you go to settings tab, and setting the more tool, right, more tool, and you'll see this developer tool. So you'll get this option, right here. This part is known as developer tool. So either you can go through that, or you can press F12. F12. Or one more shortcut is there. On any page, right click and click on inspect. Okay, so if I click this and right click over here and click on inspect, so that will come. Okay, this developer tool will come. In Mozilla Firefox also same method, right click and go to inspect element, so that this developer tool will come. Inspect element, right? So this developer tool will come. Now here generally, if I minimize this Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox, so if you see few tabs are same. Let us say here in Mozilla Firefox, so this is Mozilla Firefox, this is Google Chrome. Okay, even in Internet Explorer it's there, or your Chrome browser, Safari browser there, right? So this is the inspector tab in Mozilla Firefox. Here they have named as a element tab. Here console is there, here console is there, same. Here network is there, here also network is there, performance is there, performance, memory, these tabs are same, right? Most of the tabs are same. Now here in the first tab, in this first tab, they are same only, same. So in this tab, who works? Automation people work. Okay, automation people will working in this tab. Automation people, because they have to find XPath. Whoever is in Selenium, he know. Okay, they have to find XPath. So they work in this element tab. We performance people have to work in the network tab. This tab. Okay, they are same. So this is for performance. Performance people, right? Performance people. Using this tab, we work in the we people, performance people work in this tab. Sometime we go to this elements tab also. We have to go sometime, right? We generally go, but automation people never comes in network tab, or very rarely they will come. Okay. Overall, these two tabs are important in our testing industry, and this F12 developer tool is important, right? Now, so I'll click on network tab, and I'll just open the www.flipkart.com, or let us say amazon.com, one new website, right? Amazon.com. Correct. So this is www.amazon.com. I hit in the address bar, the website came. Now in this developer tool, if you observe, so here that address is going, see www.amazon.com, and what is the type? It's a document. Type is HTML. Okay, HTML, and other things are also going, but the request that went from my end, that is www.amazon.com, and its type is HTML type. So the user, any user action that you will do, or a transaction that generates a HTTP HTML request. Okay, HTTP HTML request, and that is the now what we'll do, we'll do one more transaction, something, delete, and let us say we'll click somewhere, anywhere on this video game. So this new page came, right? New page came, and here new URL got generated. This is the new URL, correct? Earlier what was there? Earlier something amazon.com was there, www.amazon.com was there. I think I'm accessing com only. Yeah, earlier we accessed com, that went as a request. Server sent you something, response, right? Again I clicked on something, and one new request got generated in the URL, right? And it went to the server, and server responded me back something, it responded. So it responded this video games, right? Now if we see the request that went in this developer tool, so this is the request, first request, and its type is HTML type, right? HTML. So any user action, anything you do click, you do submit, you do upload a file, you do user registration, anything you did, you do on a website, the website, you will always see here the URL will be changing. The URL is changing. That URL goes as a request to the server. That request type will be always as HTML type. Okay, and that action is known as one transaction or one user action. In same manner, there can be many user action on the website. I can click on all everywhere, so that click will generate a different URL to the server, right? So this all click or submit or payment page, anything will be known as a transaction or one user action, and one user action will generate one URL to the server. That URL will be in the form of HTML URL, right? Which is known as a request, basically. That is known as a request, and in return of that, server sends us this all stuff, all the thing what we are getting. So this is the concept of request and response, correct? Request and response of HTTP protocol, and each user action or a transaction generates HTTP HTML request, right? Now there will be many URL in the form of HTTP HTML request on a website, right? In the same pattern, if I click anywhere, again one more URL will be generated. Let us say this is this one, right? This game, I'll click, so you'll see again URL got changed over here, right? Here something, base URL remains same, base URL remains same, base URL remains same, right? This part keeps on changing. This went as a request, and server again returned you something, right? Server returned you something, and my laptop is going a little bit slow. Okay, so this is the request, and if you observe, this is the type, HTML type. Okay, we can see, we can match it also. How to match? If you click on this request, you can click, so one more tab will open. This is the tab. Okay, here some more details will be there, like request URL, what is the method, version, response header. So we'll come to that soon. Here first we are discussing about the response and other things. So if you see, this is the request URL that went, that if I copy and put it here, so both are same. See, both are same, right? This went in the URL, and this I copied from here, right? And its type is HTML type, right? So if this part is clear, performance testing is clear. Okay, if this part is clear. Request response. So each thing will generate a, request to the server in the form of a URL, and that URL can be in the form of HTTP HTML request on a website, and there can be many URL in the form of HTTP HTML request on the website, right? Now, any questions? No, right? Okay. So now,
Yeah, well, one question.
mhm.
So, well, actually, you were using this Chrome and Mozilla only, but what about this JMeter tool? How this will be in JMeter? How we will get responsibility? The same like in Mozilla only?
We'll see. It is almost same. Okay. So we'll come to that JMeter. First, let us see what is happening in the user. First, right, that is the tool.
Yeah,
Yesterday I focused mainly what is the simulator, what a tool does, right? So tool is doing the same
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
what the user is doing. So first we have to get the idea that what a user is doing. So what a performance testing does,
Okay,
they
okay.
simulate a real user behavior like browsing, login, and the same thing. So it's tool are simulators. Okay, they simulate. Now what they are simulating,
Yeah,
first
just
we
I
have
got.
to understand that. Then it will be easy to understand in
Yeah,
the tool.
yes, yes. Just I got basic. That mean both the response board in JMeter tool and the response board in Chrome both will be same or not? Just I got that basic.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So
Go
first
ahead.
we
Yeah,
are
you can go ahead.
looking in what is happening in the real user behavior in the Chrome or in any browser, right? Then we'll see in the tool. So if that what is going in the browser and that is clear, so it's easy in tool. You'll get the idea. So where we were on this point, right? Now each URL, each this HTTP URL has its own embedded resources. So remember this thing, okay? Embedded resources, also known as embedded request or sub request. These embedded resources can be in the form of CSS, JavaScript, images or videos, JPEG, JPG, GIF, PNG, SVG, fonts, WOF, icons. Okay. Now what are these embedded resources? So again we'll go back. Let us launch. So I'll just I'm going back to home page. Okay. So it's taking a little bit time, but the thing to understand here is, see, what we send to the server, we sent only this request. Okay, this request to the server, right? Here it is there, and its type is HTML type. So user only send this from his side to the address bar, right, to the server. These things were automatically called. If you see what are those things called, right, these are so many. So they are automatically called by the browser, and there are many in number. And if you say see the type, this is JS file, image file, correct? Below, so all are image only. Okay, here PNG file, GIF, fonts are there, JS file, again JavaScript, somewhere CSS will also be there. CSS will also be there. Here few HTML thing, right? Means it's calling some other request as well. I think something will be there. Okay, so that is also being called. Apart from that, GIF, HTML, and here CSS is there. Okay, CSS. So that request, basically each request will be having its embedded resources. Okay, and those all those we see here. JPEG is there, JPEG, GIF. Forget about HTML. HTML is not considered as embedded resources. Okay, apart from that, all other PNG, JS, CSS, JSS, right? Those all things, all long list is there over here. So all those things are considered as embedded resources of this request. Even we'll see one more time, right? So let me delete that, and we'll click on this computers, right? If I click on, I'm clicking over here, right? So just a second. First let me delete. So again some request went. This is the request, right, from my end, and that request is in the form of uh, HTTP HTML, right? This is the request, and these are its embedded resources. Okay, so many image, CSS, fonts, GIF, JS file, JavaScript file. JS means JavaScript file. Right here you can see scripts are also there. So the embedded resources are made of cascading style sheet. CSS means cascading style sheet. JavaScript, JS file, and .css.
Well, this Madhu here, is it embedded resource or is it a response you are getting from the request you have sent?
No, no, it's a response only, but it is called as a called by browser automatically. So it's a first we have to see it's a embedded resources. Okay, and it is called by browser automatically. We are not calling that.
So basically, a response for the request comes and gets rendered in the browser, and in the response, it can the content. One of the content is the embedded resources. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Right. So the embedded resources generally made of CSS file, JavaScript file, image and videos file. So format of image will be JPEG, JPG, GIF, PNG, SVG, fonts, icons. Right. You can see here all those types are available in this developer tool. Here WOF font is there. Right here JS file, JPEG is there, GIF is there, PNG there. Right. So these things. So each URL here I click new URL, right? I send some new request to the server, and this server also has some embedded resources. Sorry, the response that came from the server side. The response that came from the server side, uh, it is coming, whatever it is coming, right? It is whatever it is coming, but this embedded resources, the list of embedded resources is automatically called. That we have to understand. We are not sending. We are just sending this request to the server, and this request, when it is going, browser is automatically calling this embedded resources, right? Embedded resources from the server side, and or we can say in in that same format what Madhu said, that they are a part of response only, but they are considered as embedded resources, and they are automatically called by browser. Okay, they are automatically called by browser. That we have to understand, right? And each URL will be having its own embedded resources in the form of this JS file, PNG file, JPEG, CSS file, and others. Every website you can try at your end, and better to try in Mozilla Firefox, because the developer tool of Mozilla Firefox is little bit beautiful compared to Google Chrome. That's why I'm showing you in Mozilla Firefox. Okay, in Google Chrome also we can look, we can have a look here, or in Internet Explorer. So developer tool of Internet Explorer is also much better than Google Chrome. Okay, so we have to go to network tab, and let us say I'll call Flipkart. So in request only flipkart.com went. Apart from that, the embedded resources you see here, uh, here two requests went to the server, right? Its type is HTTP HTML text we call, or document we call it as. Apart from that, these all requests are embedded resources, and if we see the type PNG, style sheet, script means .js file, right? You can see the extension here, .js file, .js file, .js file, and again PNG. Again these are the image, okay, image file, and similarly SVG, so it's also kind of image only, right? But this is not proper, we do not get a proper idea here, so that's why I'll suggest that whenever you are new and you are practicing, so try to see this in Mozilla Firefox. Here you'll get a proper idea. Okay, right? So that is the thing. Now coming to what CSS does, right? Because sometime it can be interview question. CSS full form is cascading style sheet, and it beautifies the website. So technically, if you see, if you observe this is the header of Amazon.com. So it will look always in black color, not sorry, I mean dark color or black, right? So it will always be there. Even you navigate you navigate whole website, this is always constant, and it will be in black color, dark color, right? This part is in white color. Again, if you come down, uh, you'll see these are the footers of the website. They are in dark color or black color, right? Black color. So this beautification of the website is done by CSS files, cascading style 6. Layouts are there and other thing. So CSS file does this stuff. Okay. Now what is JavaScript, and what JavaScript does? So JavaScript does the logical functionality on a web page, right? Logical functionality on a web page. So one a small example. Okay, so let me say let here I have Flipkart, and I'll click on login button. Okay, so this pop-up will come, right? And let us say that here they are saying to enter a mobile number, and we know that a valid mobile number should be 10 digit, right? 10 digit in India, basically everywhere I think, but in India I'm not sure of others, right? So in India 10 digit mobile number, right? So as a tester we know that if this website is properly tested, this login module is properly tested, so if I give 9 digit number, it will throw error, right? I'll will show. So let us give a 9 digit mobile number, 2489, no, 24678 and 9. Okay, 9 digit mobile number, and I'll click on login button, so it will throw an error. See, it's saying that please enter a valid mobile number, and valid. Why it's saying that? Because this is of 9 characters only, length 9 length, right? But basically it should be of 10 digit, right? 10 digit, but this is generally of 9 digit only, right? So this kind of logical calculation which is happening on the browser end, or we call it as a user end also, or client end also, these are handled by JavaScript. This is one simple example, one of the example. JavaScript does many things, okay, but this is one of the example, correct? Similarly for password, let us say I'll rectify the mobile number, 10 digit I have given, right? Now I again hit the login button, so a new error will come for the password. It will say that enter the password. See, enter the password, right? So again this kind of logical calculation, the logical reasoning or logical functionality that we are getting, that is done by JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript.
Yeah, even this pop-up is a JavaScript.
Yeah,
Code.
this pop-up is also JavaScript, but that I'll not tell you for now, because many people are new. They do not know what is the client side rendering, what is happening. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So since you are aware, so you know that, or I know that. So that's why I'm not telling that pop-up as a. But nowadays, because of this Angular application, what is happening? They are designed in such a way that most of the processing is happening on client side, right? So this pop-up is a kind of JavaScript thing only. Okay, so this is what JavaScript does. Okay, JavaScript does. So any interviewer ask, you can explain. Now other thing like image, videos, which are in this format, they are there because on the page they are there. So image that are being called, you see this image freeze, or this image, this mobile image. So this Amazon or Flipkart, they are full of data only, image data. Okay, most image data or the price information like that, right? So image of fonts means what? Fonts means this like this kind of fonts, or these fonts, right? The letters, whatever the written, how that look, that is that will come in the font, or icons will also be there somewhere, right? So let us say the small part is treated as a icon. So this is a Flipkart icon, right? Like that. This can be one icon, right? Icon. So in image and videos part, JPEG, PNG, SVG, fonts will be there, icons will be there. So these all make what? They all make the embedded resources for which? For that particular request. Okay, that HTTP HTML request, right? Done. Now these embedded resources are also known as non-HTML resources. Okay, these are also known as non-HTML resources. And okay, this is what this concept being discussed are implemented or simulated in JMeter scripting. That's why we have to understand this thing. Okay, let it be. So this is the thing. And one more thing, if you observe that from where these things are called. So this whole page is developed on the basically the front end language is there. Okay, so in whenever a application design, so there are two types of language are always used. One is the front end language, one is the back end language. So example of from front end language is like HTML language, which is HTML language with the combination of JavaScript, CSS, right? In JavaScript, AngularJS and other things are there. Or PHP is also used as sometime in the front end only. But again, that works on the principle of the HTML syntax only, right? So these are the front end. In back end, we use Java, .NET, Python, other thing, right? So this front end part, if you want to see the code written for that, so what we can do, you can right click over here and go to view page source, right? So if you see, this is the code, this is the code written for the website, and it's always a HTML code. Okay, HTML code. That's why the request which is going, it shows that as a HTTP HTML request. See, right? HTML, HTTP HTML request. HTML oh, here. Okay. Document HTML request. So that's why that requests are known as HTML request, because their code will be generally in the HTML only. Other things are there. Now here, if you observe, there are different links are there. So let us say embedded links are there. So that's why we call them as embedded. Why we call them as embedded? So you can see here one link for this image download, PNG file, PNG file, PNG file, right? Here icon download, here icon download. So in this whole code, which is very big, if you scroll, this is a very big code. Okay, so here those links are embedded, and when we are sending this Flipkart request, so server responds, and at that time all embedded resources are also retrieve. We call them as a retrieve. Okay, they are retrieved from the server side. So many links are embedded over here, and these all links are here. You can see JPG link somewhere here, SVG link is there somewhere. You can find CSV will also be there, JS file link also will be there. So when the main resource is called, that HTML request is called, when we get the response for that, along with these embedded resources are also retrieved, right? And each user transaction will generate a HTTP HTML request, and each HTML request will be having the embedded resources in this form. These embedded resources are also known as non-HTML resources, right? Uh, and yes, why we call them as embedded resources? So here we got the idea that they are embedded on that page, and when we that response is being retrieved, these embedded resources are also retrieved, right? So this is what for today's session, request and response, and embedded resources. Okay, embedded resources. So